Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Brain Food Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Simon. Here with me today, as always, after much technical difficulties, David. How's it going?
Good.
Why do every week we have technical difficulties?
I know. It takes about an hour or two sometimes every time
to get set up, and then we do an hour of show. It's such a
and it's always something different every time, even though it's the exact same setup.
Yeah. Really an endless pain in the butt. So what are we talking about today? Major Hollywood studio in the Fantastic Four movie. We've never done a video on this, but I'm familiar with this story. I think I saw something about it on Carl's channel, Carl Smallwood's.
What a coincidence, because he helped write the draft for this, and then I edited it and whatnot. So, and added many things. Yeah.
Let's just do a bit of housekeeping before we get started. Someone emailed me who won the contest. I haven't emailed you back yet. I'm really sorry. I've been busy, but I will, and we will sort you out. Also, if you want to leave us a review for this show, please, let me do this in order. First of all, if you're listening to this show live on YouTube or on YouTube at all, please go grab it on your podcasting platform, wherever you like to listen. It is, it's an easier way to listen. This is definitely an audio focused show, so that's a good way to do it. If you are doing that already, why not leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts? When we get to 1,000 reviews on American iTunes, right? That's what we use as our benchmark. We're going to go through all of the major podcasting platforms and pick someone to win an Amazon gift voucher. This time, for 1,000 reviews, it's $1,000. Sorry, I should say dollars, £1,000. Although with today's exchange rate, it's probably like, yeah, it's like £1,000 is $1,000. It's depressing. So yeah, go do that. That would be awesome. Do you want to start us off with quick facts, and then we can get into the main episode today?
We are. So have you ever wondered why superheroes classically in their outfits always wear their underwear on the outside of their outfit?
Oh my God, I have wondered that. Tell me more.
Have you? And just a quick aside before we get into it for everyone, this was our first video that we ever did, right? Like the first one you ever published to YouTube and the first one I ever published, right?
I think this was, yeah, definitely. And I think this was way back, like before we even...
2013. The website, for people who don't know, was started in 2009, but the YouTube, we did a test video of this on YouTube, and it got like 500,000 views.
Because my journey on YouTube was, I always say, kind of starting with top 10s, which was the first channel I did. And then we started something, about a year later?
Yeah, a year later, but I'm pretty sure this one was like a year before.
Yeah, because it was before anything. It was just kind of like, let's just give this a test and see what happens.
Yeah.
Did it do well?
It did. It got like 500,000 views.
Oh, wow. That is well. Is that because the channel does well now, or was that originally?
No, that was originally. It hasn't really gotten any views since.
Wow. That's cool.
If people want to go check out the very first video, well, then they'll spoil about what I'm about to say. But it's there, and it's very different than our current ones. It's a little clip art animation type dealy.
Didn't we do something about pirates as well?
Yeah, that was one that came a little later, and then the how Port and Starboard came to be, and then we did one on the surprisingly long time you can last in space without a spacesuit, and all of those got published on Gizmodo and stuff, so they all did really well. That was back when Gizmodo was republishing all the stuff from today, I found out, and then Geek and Nerds, the origin of the words Geek and Nerds, and then and then we did nothing for like 2 years or a year or something. 2 years.
And then we did everything for 18 months and nothing took off. And then
boom. Yeah, exactly. We should have capitalized on that Gizmodo time.
Yes.
Probably publishing everything.
Should we have got started earlier? As with everything in life, probably yes.
Yes. All right. So why do they wear their underwear on the outside? So there's a lot of little theories going around, the hypotheses, I should say, as to why they do that. And one, I actually liked one suggestion was that because most superheroes, they lost their parents at an early age, so that they didn't know your underwear goes under your clothes instead of on the outside.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that one's a big old legend.
Yeah. So the real reason was, it was just according to DC comic editor Julius Schwartz, who he was edited tons of stuff like Superman and stuff, a lot of these early depictions of this very thing. And he said it was actually the artists were modeling it after aerial circus performers and wrestlers of the era in sort of the earliest 20th century. If you go back and look, they do wear these sort of like tights and then like these like, underwear, like tight shorts on the outside.
Did you just do a video on the Mucha Libre or whatever it was? The Mexican.
Yeah, we did. That guy with the mask
or something. Yeah.
They never took off his mask except for like later in life. Like, even I thought the funniest part of that was even when he starred in TV shows, that he just inexplicably would have the mask on.
Yeah. That's a good one. It's like when he's in that, what was it? And it wasn't just the audience. There was the one where the woman was playing like his wife or whatever and said, you have to reveal your face to me. And he didn't want to. So he had like a body double to wear the mask and take it off and only be shot from behind. So the other actress couldn't see what he looked like.
Yeah. It's crazy. But yeah.
Well,
that actually did really well. I was so shocked that one did well at all. I thought that would
definitely
be like
in our low potential list of
things. Yeah,
things.
but did awesome. So
what I want to say is these guys kind of look like superheroes in their kind of weird colorful.
Yeah, it's like the wrestlers. You can think of like the WWF and those. They also wear the type of outfit. And there is a debate, like, is it underwear though? Like for superheroes, because they're kind of, it could just be like, tight shorts. But in the superheroes case, they actually wear it under their clothes, right? And then they take off their clothes, and then there's their underwear, basically.
Well, I think
right?
you call it. It's middleware, isn't it? It's not outer.
Yeah.
It's not under. It's
and they're not really wearing anything under that except for tights.
Yeah.
So in any event,
the Brain Food Show answering life's important questions.
Yeah, the artist figured because the superheroes do a lot of acrobatic stuff and they're doing all sorts of athletic things, they should put them in that outfit, which also distinguishes it from kind of normal clothes that non-superheroes wear, so it gives them a kind of a distinctive look. And the first to do this was the 1934 Flash Gordon one, and then of course Superman in 1938 would adopt this. And also Superman also was the first that I could find. I couldn't find anyone else, any previous superhero that had a cape. I think Superman was the first for that, unless someone wants to correct me, but I couldn't find one.
Why he had a cape? It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I assume to make it look cooler when he's flying or something, but like, no real purpose.
Because the first thing that just my mind is he has a cape because he flies. And then I'm like, wait, that makes no sense. We just associate capes with flying because of Superman.
Yeah, basically. And then of course all the comics that adopted that. Interesting aside here. So in Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, they actually created Superman a little bit before that, 1938. So they had a character in the reign of Superman in 1933, and he was not a good guy though. Their original incarnation of Superman was a bad guy, and he was just like some random guy named Bill Dunn who was in a soup kitchen line. And then this Professor Ernest Smalley comes up to him and offers him food and clothes and stuff if he'll just come and participate in an experiment. And then so Ernest Smalley gives him some sort of concoction that he made that makes Dunn telepathic. And then of course, naturally, now that he has superpowers and he is a Superman, he tries to take over the world, as you do. Wow. And in the
superpowers are a bit more layman today. What can you do? I can read people's minds. I mean, it's cool.
And then to instantly jump to, now I'm going to take over the world.
Yeah.
That
I can tell what people are thinking about. It's mostly like sex and pretty dull stuff.
So now I'm just gonna conquer everyone. But in the process of doing this, he kills Professor Smalley, and then he finds out that his powers aren't permanent unless he keeps taking the potion. And Superman loses his powers, and then he finds himself, it ends with him back in the soup kitchen line. So kind of not arrested apparently, but so either way, so then a year after that, they recast the character of Superman, came up with a whole new story, and named him Clark Kent after Kent Taylor and Clark Gable, the actors.
Do you think we just associate the name Clark Kent with being awesome because of Superman, or do you think it sounds cool? Because Bill Dunn doesn't really have the same appeal.
No. And what was that? Did you do the one with the Stan
guy
Lee?
with the extremely boring name?
Yeah.
But I can't remember what it was because it was so boring.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
Or the other one, are you familiar? Was it a Today I Found Out video we did about the ornithologist James Bond?
Yeah. It was so boring. That's why he picked the name.
Yeah, because there's some like ornithologist in the Bahamas, and it's like the dullest name I've ever heard.
Yeah. So Yeah, Sanford Dorf was the guy. So the
Sanford
story
Dorf.
here is the so Stan Lee's wife was married at the time when he proposed to her. When he asked her out on a date, she was married, but and happily married by her own account. But then she was bored though, and so she just like Stan Lee came and professed his undying love for her, and like kind of in a creepy way, which you can watch in the video coming up. But either way, so she goes out on a date with him, and so yeah, her husband was named Sanford Dorf.
Yeah.
So
It's a
she
bit
was
weird
born.
though. Stan Lee seems a bit weird in this story because he's like, he just meets
Yeah.
this woman and he's like, I have undying love for you. It's like,
And Anne tells her, and
what?
literally, like one of the first thing he tells her is he's been drawing her face since he was a kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, he is good at drawing at least. Like if
yeah, but
someone
like how if you just think if you're a woman and some guy comes up and it's just like immediately he's like professes his undying love for you just
I've
when he
been
sees you,
drawing
and
your
then
face. Oh my god. Because next you're gonna be wearing my face. I can tell.
yeah, yeah, and then she's married, and then she goes out on a date with him, and then 2 weeks later they decide to get married.
Yeah.
And of course she has to get a divorce and all that, so it's kind of had shenanigans there. But then they ended up being married for 69 years, so it worked out
It's pretty
in
solid.
the end.
69
Yeah,
years is a long time.
yeah, but yeah, Sanford Dorf. You can't get much boring sounding than that.
It also sounds kind of, his name sounds like he's a dork because of Dorf.
Yeah,
It's not
and
really a thrilling name, is it?
yeah, no.
Although if he was Superman, I'm sure it'd be like Sanford Dorf, epic hero, like James Bond.
Yeah,
Should we do our ad read and then get into the main episode?
we do.
Today?
I'm quite excited about this one because did you know like CinemaSins was probably I think might have been the first channel I ever watched on YouTube.
It definitely wasn't. My first ones were always just rip-offs of the Ali G show, like from whatever TV, like because YouTube at the beginning, I swear it was just like ripped off TV shows and little clips.
Yeah. For me, it was like there's YouTube was literally not even on my radar until like I don't know, it was like 2010 or so, 2011. Someone emailed me and was like, "Hey, you should take the Today I Found Out name before someone else does on YouTube because you know you got the website." So I did, and then I did nothing with it for a while.
Wow, you got on that game late.
Totally, and like CinemaSins, I think might have been like the first channel I ever watched, and so now they're sort of sponsoring us, but in the form of his book.
Yeah,
His book.
a couple of his books. Do you have the? Oh, you got them
Yeah.
there as well. Do you like how I propped this up like a true professional?
Yeah.
Did you see that? Like, yeah,
I should have done that. Like,
for our audio listeners, I've
or
got
should
the
just
book,
like hang it for more like you know,
dramatic
so it's
effect,
more.
just spinning around.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Scott, who is the co-creator and narrator of CinemaSins, he wrote a book called The Ables, which I'm holding up to the camera right now, and he recently wrote a follow-up to that book, this one right here, called Strings. And should I say the summary? I don't want to say the summary of the book, but I'll give like a tease of what the book.
You don't want to like spoil it.
Yeah. Basically, it's about superheroes. Super appropriate for this video. I guess I won't describe the second book, or no, I'll do that. I'll do like the whole thing. I'll do the whole concept because I think that's a good teaser. Basically, it's about this dude, and he's like blind, but he also has telekinesis. So as we'd say in the UK, swings and roundabouts, but I know that doesn't cross the pond. So it's like pros and cons.
Yeah.
Like being blind, pro telekinesis.
Yeah,
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So he and his friends, they go to like this superhero school, and then like there's this class, and you know there's the blind kid and some other kids who have like various disabilities, but you know those are the cons. Pros, they'll have superpowers. It's pretty great. If you like this sort of video, like or podcast, if you've clicked on one about the Fantastic Four, you're probably into superheroes. So why not give these books a go? You can order the first one, The Ables, right now. If you go to cinemasins.com/book. And then on the 24th, you can pre-order it now, but on the 24th it's out. And that's the second one called Strings. So that's cinemasins.com/book. Go and check it out. I think we think you'll like it. Yeah. Thank you to CinemaSins. Appreciate it. You guys also have a kick-ass YouTube channel. Free plug for free. Go check it out. Should we get into our main content?
We shall. So I don't know. Have you heard of this before? Marvel, you know how they sold off so many of their properties in the early days for like nothing, like literally nothing almost, as we'll get into here shortly. But
I didn't know so much about this. I followed the more recent like crazy number acquisitions where you're getting to like the billions for like different companies and Disney dominating. It's super
talk about the value of a company going up quickly with Marvel, with
Wowie.
Ironman, yeah, very rapidly. But so today we're going to talk about one such acquisition was when they sold the Fantastic Four, which the Fantastic Four was the first one for Marvel where they sort of went away from before this they were called Timely. Was it Timely Productions or something like that? And so they just basically copied anyone else. Like they did like westerns, they copied DC Comics superheroes type stuff. They had Captain America for a while there, but it was like a really boring, like as Stanley said, cardboard character at that point. And then so Fantastic Four is when they kind of branched out and said we're going to do something like completely different and make more like realistic, like human, like real people, not like just like these cardboard characters that were, not normal. They're these flawless individuals. So then the Fantastic Four is where they kind of branched off there, and that really like put them on the path to being the Marvel that we have today. So fast forward to 1983, and so at this point they're selling off a lot of their properties, and so enter German producer Bernd Eichinger.
Absolutely nailed it, 100%.
Yeah, I actually looked this up as a natural German speaker saying it, and I couldn't quite get the. It's like Eiching. It's like it's not it's more like an or something.
Eichinger.
Wait.
I don't think your sound's going to be going to the right place.
No.
Bernd Eichinger.
Oh,
Bernd Eichinger.
Great.
All right. I'm definitely
going to got that out of the way.
I'm definitely not going to say
guy
that.
Better be a recurring character throughout this whole episode. Now that we've done this,
It's too. Yeah, Bernd Eichinger was so he was. So he flies over and he's going to meet with Stan Lee to talk about, he wants the Fantastic Four. He's a huge fan, and his company, he actually runs a company called New Constantine, which is a really, I mean, a lot of people probably don't know the name, but they did like hundreds of movies, and they were involved with like Resident Evil and stuff like that as well.
I feel I've heard of it because when you go to the cinema, you sit there and they're like, da, 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 Universal, and then, all the other ones that you wouldn't know what they were, but you've heard the names.
Yeah. So he was involved in that, and later also Summit. He made Summit, which made like the Twilight series and stuff like that. But anyways, going back to this, he's going 1983. The company the New Constantine, it just started like 1979. He got a stake in it and helped found it. But he wants the Fantastic Four, and so he's a huge fan. So Eichinger, he notes of their meeting with Stan Lee.
When I shook Lee's hands, I was kind of wobbling. It was like meeting God. Also, how cool is it? This guy's like, I like this comic. Let's buy it.
Yeah, totally. And at the time, like, it wasn't very expensive. So, but
he wasn't literally rich. He was just a regular guy.
This is totally like, you don't have to be rich to. I mean, you got to be well off, but like if you're like sort of that borderline between upper, like your upper echelons of middle class, lower rich, kind of that ballpark. If you wanted, you could do this.
Wait,
it would definitely be.
Am I going to spoil it by asking how much it is?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So at this point, he couldn't buy it, is the problem, because it turns out Marvel had already sold off the Human Torch character to Universal Studios, and
Flame
so that
on!
was one.
That's
Yeah, one of the
saw that terrible movie.
Yeah, and so so they sell it to Universal Studios through Frank Price there, and they end up never not doing anything with it, but at the time they couldn't sell the rest of the Fantastic Four, so they turned them away. But 3 years later, when Universal Studios let their film rights to the character lapse, then they could. So Eichinger, he goes back, he buys it, and so he basically has the rights to it at this point until December 31st, 1992. So he has exclusive film and TV rights. So, and like one thing important to note here is it's not just the characters and the stories he's getting, but literally every facet of the storylines and like side characters and like these things. So a good example of this is Fox. When Fox buys X-Men, when they bought X-Men, they weren't just buying the X-Men. They were also like the very concept of mutants with superpowers was now theirs. Like, and so Marvel at this point could not use it, like if you call it a mutant with superpowers, Marvel can no longer has the film rights to anything with that.
But then unless that's so generic. Like they could be like, yeah, I'm anything to do with spies. Like, that's mine.
Yeah, this was the problem with the way Marvel worded a lot of these contracts in the early days, is they were very loose, as we'll see where this Eichinger, he takes advantage of that as well. So yeah, this is the thing, and this led to a lot of different things happening with. So this is why like Scarlet Witch and whatnot in the Marvel couldn't be a mutant. Like they had to give her a different origin story, and they could still use it because of like this, like if the character also appeared as sort of a main character of like a non-X-Men, they could still use it sort of as like a joint thing, but they couldn't reference the mutant part. And so this is like a contract thing that they, this was just way too broadly worded in the way they do this. So
I still don't understand how you can just say we're doing mutants. Surely they didn't invent, I mean, the idea of genetic mutation is not something that they can own.
Yeah, well, mutants with superpowers. So it didn't have to be actual X-Men. It could be just any mutants with superpowers, which brings us...
too broad.
It is way too broad. Exactly, very much. So this is why Squirrel Girl, if anyone... So Squirrel Girl is sort of this... started out as just sort of this like character that was supposed to be funny, like just a one-off type thing to be. She wanted to be Iron Man's sidekick, and she's just sort of like a plucky, upbeat, and super positive version of Deadpool, kind of. And like a young teenager, she was 14 when she debuted in the the age they put her at the time. And so like this character, they couldn't call her.
She has a giant tail.
She does, which she keeps she keeps tucked away in her pants, which she notes gives her a nicely shaped butt in the comics.
Wow. How old was she again?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it gets even creepier than that. But so when they created this, they actually specifically put a part in the comics where she's examined by a doctor to like, where's her powers coming from, and to specifically have the doctor note that she's not a mutant, she's something completely different. And this was solely so that they wouldn't, so that if they wanted to, then they could use her in a film at some point without having to, get around the problem. So this character though is hilarious because she's kind of grown in popularity in the last few years. But so she, like, the running gag with her is that she can just easily defeat anybody, even though she's just kind of like, her powers are the powers of squirrels. So
what exactly are the powers of squirrels?
Well, she's like super agile and
burying nuts.
Jump. Yeah, there's a lot of nut jokes with like, she's got
she's excellent at long-term investing.
Yeah, her utility belt has these little pouches that contain not like gadgets like Batman or something, but nuts, and it's her nut sacks in the comics. Yeah, it's funny. Like you can see, it's really funny, and sort of they also, she breaks the fourth wall, and so does her little squirrel sidekick.
Like
a little bit.
It's like Deadpool.
Yeah, it's a little bit. She's like a positive version of Deadpool and not gory. But the running gag is sort of that she can defeat anybody, like just randomly, and sometimes not even like when she beats Thanos. It's like, I think the first time it wasn't even showed how she did it. She just like, no big deal. Yeah, I beat Thanos. Like,
I don't know anything about what's Thanos.
Thanos, like Marvel.
I've never seen any of these movies. Dude, it's me. What did you expect?
No.
I've never seen any of the Avengers movies. I've seen Iron Man. That's it. The original Iron Man and the second Iron Man, which were amazing.
This is a whole nother level, because it's like The Princess Bride, at least you could argue that it was sort of obscure when it came out.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not big into comic books. I really liked Iron Man. And then I read a bunch of Iron Man comics because a friend of mine gave them to me, and it was great. But that's about as far as What? It's not unreasonable. Not everyone's into comics.
Well, but the movies are like universal. Like literally almost everyone loves them.
Avengers with like my wife should be like, are you joking?
She would love them because everyone loves them.
Not everyone. Actually, that's not true. I did see one. What's the one where a big rip opens in the sky above like Metropolis or whatever, and all of these space aliens come in, and then they have to fight.
That was the first Avengers one.
I had absolutely no idea what was going on.
Naturally.
I'm just like, I came here to see Iron Man, and now I'm very confused.
You're missing out, because especially like they just get better. Well, mostly they get better and better as they go. There's a few that are kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's good. They're all good, but they definitely improve. I mean, Iron Man, of course, is still, one of the greats, but the last like Endgame, it's so good. So good.
I liked, I'm sorry. I also saw Batman. Batman was also great with Christian Bale.
Yeah, that one's DC Comics though. So, but
That was also good. If they can get Batman and Iron Man together, I'd go see that.
way,
There's going to be
way better.
licensing
You should
issues. I'm aware.
definitely, you should definitely go through them. They're good. They're good entertainment. But anyway, she can beat. She beats Thanos. She beats Ego. You haven't seen the Guardians of the Galaxy either, because those are two of like.
Wait, is that the one with Chris Pratt?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's good.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, is that in
You've
the same
seen this-
universe?
Ego, the living planet. His.
Oh,
I don't want to spoil it.
Wait, no, maybe I haven't seen that. I think I've seen the first two.
Chris Pratt. Is he who I'm thinking of?
The one where he plays the kind of lazy superhero.
Yeah.
He's like a
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
living planet in that. Maybe I
Guardians
fell
of the
asleep.
Galaxy. No, that's the second one. I'm not gonna spoil it, so I'll just say there's Ego the Living Planet. She beats
I'm
him
pretty sure
easily.
I've seen the second one, and now I think I probably did fall asleep.
Galacticus, Doctor Doom, and Magneto, and she also beats Wolverine, Deadpool, and Spider-Man just for fun. And that, but so she's a nanny because she's a teenager, so she's a nanny for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, the superheroes. And so
I have no idea who these people are.
This comes to the sort of creepy part. So Wolverine walks in on one of them, and he sees her there, and he's like, "Oh," and it's like it's implied that they used to have some sort of intimate relationship, but she was like 16 or 15 at the time of the showing, and then it's like before, and he's like over 100.
Yeah.
And so it reminded me a little bit of Twilight as well.
I've never
which
seen Twilight either.
Yeah, well, you're not missing out
That
on
one I hear is it's good. I
Yeah.
haven't seen.
Yeah.
Sparkly vampires, as far as I'm aware.
So you asked how much how much did Marvel sell to this guy, and it turns out they sold Fantastic Four, which was one of their prime properties, the entire sort of storyline, all the connected characters, everything they sold for $250,000, which, to be fair, and adjusted for inflation, was $577,000 today. But that's still that's expensive, but if you really wanted it, if you're like a low kind of that, like that in between, if you wanted it, you could just buy it, just buy the film rights.
To be fair, I don't know many middle class people who could go spend $600,000 on a comic.
Sort of like that super upper middle class, like lower rich, that if you want, if you really want, it's like buying a house, if you just really wanted it. But of course, Marvel probably wouldn't sell it to you because, there's the whole fact that they're selling it because they expect you to make a film out of it. And so you'd have to, have money backing it up, which was, yeah.
Well,
so they
invent a time machine, I know what to do. Buy Amazon.
And Spider-Man, they sold Spider-Man to Canon Films at the time for $225,000, which Spider-Man also one of their top things. And of course, Daredevil and X-Men to Fox, Blade to New Line, Hulk and the Iron Man to Universal, which I didn't know Iron Man particularly. Hulk, actually, Universal I think still holds the rights to Hulk, so they had to do some sort of sharing there in the films. But and also why you're not getting the Hulk.
Blade is a superhero.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, those were actually some of the better superhero, ones back in the 90s, like when everything was crap.
Blade.
Yeah, that was good.
Cool.
But yeah, so Iron Man was owned by Universal, and they ended up the part that I thought was interesting about this is, so Nicolas Cage, which he seemingly is going to be wants everything. He wanted to be Iron Man. He pushed for it in 1996, and Tom Cruise also pushed for it pretty hard. Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino was offered the job to direct the film and write a script. It didn't go forward, of course. Then Stanley and Jeff Vintar actually did write a script for it, but they ended up Universal ended up selling it to, I think they sold it to Fox. I can't remember. Either way, they let whoever let the rights to it lapse in 2006, which is when Marvel decided to launch their awesome movies with Iron Man almost immediately.
Are you familiar with Drew's Scriptorama? Do you know this website?
No.
It's like a guy who's compiled all of the scripts for movies. So you can go in and you can search for movies, and they often have ones that weren't made. So you can go in there and you see the original script for this. And when you know who the cast is, and when you know all of these details, it's pretty amazing because you can read through the script and the movie plays out in your mind because it's fade to black. The scene is like this. This is happening. And the ability of your mind to make up the movie is incredible. And then you can just imagine Quentin Tarantino directing. So you're like, okay, tons of blood, Nick Cage as Iron Man, and all of this stuff. I won't check now because it'll take too long to search through it. It would be awesome if that script was on Drew Scriptorama.
Yeah. And the original, I think the original Iron Man script actually had, when the actual one Marvel did, actually had a lot of leeway. I don't know how, I was reading something about how the script itself wasn't actually super detailed on a lot of the lines. Like a lot of the actors just kind of came up with what they said, which I mean, with Robert Downey Jr. works great because he's, kind of just playing himself as a superhero. So it kind of worked
I don't
out.
want to bring you down. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah. So where are we at here? So yeah, Marvel. So like, at the time, they thought this was a great deal, like selling off these things, because one, they were having some financial problems at the time, but also it seemed like it basically didn't matter what they were getting for it because they were basically selling this. They were making some money, but which was basically someone paying them to advertise for them. So like if these movies actually get made, it's like free advertising. So they sell more comics, which is really what they were interested in. And then on top of that, if no film gets made, they just get the rights back. They can sell them again to someone else, and then maybe a film is made there. So the whole thing seemed like a great idea to Marvel at the time. But then Batman came out in 1989 and grossed a whopping $411 million, which is about $840 million today, off a budget of just $35 million. And then Marvel was like, wait a minute.
Wait, which Batman was this?
This was the one with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson.
Was this when they were kind of campy? Was that Batman?
No, this one was the good one.
Oh, okay.
of that era.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pictures of it now.
Yeah, it was good. I haven't actually seen it in many years, but I remember liking it a lot as a kid. So they realized at this point that they had massively underestimated the values. So they started rethinking this whole idea of selling off but they'd already sold off most of the rights, so it wasn't working out for them. But as for Eichinger, he had the rights to Fantastic Four in hand. So then he sought out, because he was a huge fan. He gets painted sometimes because of this story as a guy who like didn't even care about Fantastic Four, but like he was actually a huge fan, and he wanted to make a movie that would be like a $50 to $150 million budget, which back then was about $100 to $300 million today in today's dollars. So he wanted to make one of the most this is the Eichinger with the Fantastic Four.
A few $100,000.
Yeah, he wanted to make this like massive movie on a scale for a superhero movie. Like even the Batman was only a budget of 35 million. So this would have been, like groundbreaking. But of course, because he was wanting to spend all this money on a superhero film, he was not getting investors to bite on the idea. But at the same time, he was talking to Chris Columbus, who at the time had directed Home Alone. And since then he's done a lot of other stuff, like some of the Harry Potters and stuff. And so he was doing all this, trying to find funding, trying to get Chris Columbus tacked on, so that would also help get funding to have a major director on board.
It's disappointing he doesn't go by Christopher Columbus, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I assume that's probably why. But the problem is, all this is happening in December 31st, 1992 is coming up, which is when his expiration on the film rights. So he goes to Marvel and he's like, hey, can we work out an extension? I still want to make this movie. And he thinks they're going to just be like, yeah, sure. Because, he's going to make this awesome movie for them. But at this point, of course, they had rethought their whole thing, and they were like, no, we want that back. So we're not going to make a deal. We want the characters back. And so this had Eichinger. He then goes looking at the contract to see if there's any way he can continue to have the rights. And what he finds is it's quite loosely worded contract, it turns out. And it turns out he doesn't actually have to have made the film. He just had to be in the process of making a film. And also critically, because he didn't have the funding, is that he also noticed that Marvel nowhere stipulated how big of a movie this had to be, like how wide a release it had to have or how much it had to have cost to make. So like he could literally get out a home camera and just start filming, Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And if he wanted. He didn't go quite that cheap, but yeah. So as a quote,
it's about 30 seconds long.
Yeah. And so he's still on the side trying to get Chris Columbus on board and trying to get funding for a big movie. But then he says, okay, my deadline's coming up, so I'm going to go to Roger Corman. It was he's one of the most famous B-movie directors of all time. And so, yeah, he goes, and this is 3 months before the contract's about to expire. And he goes and he says, I need to make this movie fast. And he offered him like $3 million to make it, like a budget of $3 million at first, but it ended up only costing $1.5 million because they went super cheap, which is about $2.7 million.
If he's just going to make, he just has to make a bad movie, right, to
Yeah,
extend this.
he just has to make the movie. I assume probably because if he just literally whips out a home camera and does that, I'm assuming he's thinking Marvel would probably sue him and probably win, right? Like there's the
Yeah.
spirit of the contract too. Whereas if he puts some effort in, like hires a
Like, no, I
notable,
really tried.
yeah, I got this director, this, and he's like a famous B movie director. Like he's like the king of B movie directors here. And so he could he gave him, it's not like he gave him nothing, to work with. I mean, it was about 2.7 million today, it was 1.5 million then. So it was like, not nothing. So it was like a sort of, he could maybe argue it was a good faith effort,
Sure.
I suppose. And he didn't even tell Corman that he had no plans to release this movie. Like Corman was under the impression this was going to be like a movie that was actually, going to see the light of day. And so, and none of the actors either. None of the actors knew that they all thought this was like going to be like the next Batman. They were trying to do their best off the shoestring budget to make it that.
Batman had a budget 30 times bigger.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But they didn't know. They're trying to do their best, and so you had everyone working real hard on it. So one problem they did have is Corman. He wanted as much time as possible to plan. He only had 3 months, and he was like, "So we'll just do it on the 31st, right? Then you'll be able to December 31st. We'll start filming. And then you'll still have your rights." But the Eichinger he didn't like that idea because then he thought it would look super obvious that he was just doing it to keep the rights. And then Corman reasonably responds to him.
It's going to be pretty obvious whether it's December the 26th or December 31st.
Yeah. So, because Eichinger wanted the 26th for some, just because. And so they ended up,
It does seem less like, what time did you start recording? 11:59 on the 31st.
Yeah. So they ended up splitting the difference and agreed to the 28th to give Corman a little bit more time to plan. Because again, he was trying to make like the best movie he could make. Like this, he's a professional director, and he wanted to do a good job, and the actors all wanted to do a good job as well. So you have like the costume designer Reve Richards was studying the original comics and reproduced like the exact costumes and everything. And the actor who played the Thing, he ended up shadowing the character of the actor who had played the Benjamin Grimm. So the Thing, then the rock covered version of that character. So he wanted to mimic sort of the mannerisms and everything of this other actor. So everyone was trying to do a great job. None of them knew.
Now it's gone from funny to just quite sad.
Yeah, it is, because they're like super excited. Some of them, they're like, "This is going to launch my career,"
break.
Yeah, and we're going to do an awesome job. And they ended up 28 days was all it took to film this thing, because
there's got to be a point where you're like, it's a bit shit, isn't it?
Yeah,
surely.
Yeah.
Or do you think you're just like, just get on with it, hope for the best?
Yeah, you do feel bad for them. But so, I mean, they thought they did a good job, I guess.
David, I think I've lost your audio. Sorry, everybody, just give us a second. I'm not sure if it's just me, but based on our technical troubles before this call, I think that David has probably got some audio issues his side. So let me know if in the chat, well, now you definitely can't hear him, but his audio seemed to die. Now he's disappeared. Hopefully he hasn't been kidnapped, by the movie studio for talking bad things about their movies. I hear some terrible interference. This is good sound. Oh, that's not sounding good. Wow. It sounds like an old dial-up modem connecting. David's audio is gone. Okay. It's interesting how the live stream chat is so far behind what we're actually talking about. I think it's like a good 45 seconds. Wow, that was loud. However, I'm just looking at the chat now. This is live. Obviously, would have edited this out. If not, I see people say it's pre-recorded. It's definitely not pre-recorded. Hey, welcome back.
My battery died on the H5, which we thought is it making the popping sound this time?
It definitely is, but it's quiet. There's not really anything we can do about it, so we must soldier on.
I could get new batteries if you wanted.
Let's just soldier on. It's not appearing in your master recording, is it?
I wouldn't think so.
Grand.
Where did we stop? Where did you stop hearing me talk?
Let's just say I'm not even sure because I stayed quiet for a while, thinking it might just be me and that it would carry on.
So what was so let's see.
We were talking about how the actors were thinking it was really good. He shadowed him for a while. I probably made some bad jokes, and we're like, I would say here. Do you see where I've highlighted in our document? Crack on.
All right, so where his mannerisms and gait were all trying to do similar.
About mannerisms.
All right, so, and Eichinger at this time, he did maintain that he was actually planning on releasing this, even though all evidence to the contrary, because after the 28 days after the filming wrapped, he ended up just like ceasing all communication with everyone involved in the film, sort of ghosted them. Exactly, and so, but undeterred, they made this film, and they still thought it would get. I mean, they made the film, they have the stuff, so all the editors, everyone continued working on it on their own time. Even the composers who had written the music but had not yet been recorded, then spent their own money, many thousands of dollars, to get a symphony to record it, so that for the film, and everyone's doing this. And then when Eichinger showed absolutely zero interest in promoting the movie, the actors took it upon themselves they pooled some money together, hired a publicist to then start putting it out there. They go around to all these magazines and newspapers and trying to anyone who will listen basically about this movie that's going to come out, this superhero movie. And they went to Comic-Con in their costumes and did autograph tours and everything. They were trying to promote it. And so Corman, meanwhile, so he also put in one of his movies, The Carnosaur, which is a direct to VHS movie he made. He put that as the trailer for the Fantastic Four in there that he had made. So he's promoting it that way.
At the front of movies. I forgot about that.
Yeah, right.
That was annoying. Do you remember DVDs when they first came out and you couldn't fast forward them?
I did. There was a Disney movie where I just rip them all and put them on Plex, so I can just watch them from anywhere.
Yeah, when I buy them in the day.
No, but like nowadays, that's what I do. And I don't know, a month or two ago, I actually had to watch a Disney movie in like a Blu-ray player, and it had this whole like 3-minute thing you couldn't skip. It just kept going.
Like, how much did I pay for this?
It
was like £18, I remember, for a DVD when it first came out. I remember I had The Matrix. It was the first ever DVD I owned, and you used to have to watch trailers. It's like, I paid for this already.
Yeah, it was quite annoying, and everyone, Plex is way better. Have you used Plex at all?
Have you used Plex? You recommended it to me.
Yes, put all your films, and then you can just watch anywhere in the world. It's awesome.
It's pretty good.
But in any event, so they cobble this from all the footage. The editors, they eventually come up with a workable film, and they set up a premiere and release in theaters and everything. And so it's supposed to premiere at the Mall of America in Minnesota, but it was like a charity event there at the theater there for like Ronald McDonald House and stuff like that. So it's supposed to premiere, but then literally days before, they put in all this work over the course of like a year, I think it was. They put in all this work to finalize the movie. They get a cease and desist order from Eichinger, and basically
stop promoting the bloody movie.
He's basically like, you're not putting out this movie. And the theaters, all the copies, they were confiscated and destroyed. Well, supposedly all the copies, but there's actually still copies around that you can find low quality on the internet, and no one quite knows where those came from because everyone says every copy was destroyed. So what happened here? And it turns out, so the CEO of Marvel at the time, Avi Arad and Stanley and Eichinger all have sort of various versions of the same story. So basically what it came down to is Marvel, of course, caught wind that this thing was actually going to be produced and that it was super cheap and like low rate, B movie type thing. And so they didn't want one of their strongest brands in Fantastic Four to debut in this crappy movie. And so like as Stanley noted,
I have a sentimental attachment to the Fantastic Four, and I was heartbroken to think it might appear only as a low-budget quickie.
Yeah, and so then Arad, according to Eichinger, Arad calls him and says,
"Listen, I think what you did was great. It shows your enthusiasm for the movie and the property. And to tell you what, I understand that you have invested so and so much, and Roger has invested so and so much. Let's do a deal." because
Because everyone
that's
in
not part of the
Hollywood always says
quote. Sorry.
everyone in Hollywood always says everything is great. This I know we've our dealings with this, and I've had some dealings, and today I found out before it's always like everything's that's great. That's exactly what we're looking for, except like and then they never tell you what they actually want. Like we're not gonna say what show it was, but wow, is that annoying for like months on end.
It's so weird. It's such a strange way to do business. Like
It's like just tell me what just tell me what you want. Like just lay it out there and then we'll do that.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah. Anyway.
It's a strange
so yes, he everything was great, but of course he wanted to make a deal so that this thing would not see the light of day, is what they wanted. So it ended up Arid, he in 2002, when asked about this at a convention, he responded,
I bought Comic-Con Corman's Fantastic Four for $2 million and burned it.
And the funny thing about this is, okay, so the budget was 1.5 million. It is for the actors, but and they put in all this work. But okay, so you think about this from his perspective, is Ihinger, he buys this property in the first place, this rights for $250,000, and then he can't get Marvel to extend it, so then he spends 1.5 million on this film, and then Marvel pays him a couple million to not put the film out. So it ended up like he kind of ended up making a profit off this thing, and Marvel ended up having to pay a lot of money rather than he probably would have offered the money to extend the deal. But so he got to extend it because he made the film. It was they're the ones who didn't want him to put it out.
Yeah.
So yes, that ended up putting the end to that movie. But yeah, in the end, Marvel pays him 10 times what he paid them in the first place for the rights just to not put out the movie. But yes, there is, if you search around on the internet, you can find sort of bootleg copies of this. And
have you seen this?
I saw a couple clips on YouTube, but I haven't seen like the whole thing.
It's all. I feel like I've seen pictures from it.
Yeah, I just seen like little snippets. Yeah, it does. So the funny thing about this though is if you go look up on Rotten Tomatoes, this film 1994 Fantastic Four has a 27% rating versus the 2005 Fantastic Four film, which had a cost about $230 million to make. That had the same exact rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Although, to be fair, that one actually made a lot of money. I can't remember how much it was, but it made quite a profit.
Because they actually released it.
Yeah, well, and they did put a lot of money in it, and so yeah.
I
then
remember it being really quite bad, though.
Yeah, I think so. But at the time, the superhero movies, other than like the Spider-Man, I mean, they weren't great back then. I mean, you had like the Batman. Was Batman up for Fantastic Four?
I like that Spider-Man, the one with
Tobey Maguire.
That was cool.
Yeah, I mean the newer Spider-Man is way better, which you've not seen because you haven't watched the Marvel movies, but it is way better. But that one, yeah, at the time that one was great because it was it was a lot better than most superhero stuff at the time.
Better than the Tobey Maguire one? I thought everyone said it was worse.
No, the new one is awesome. The Marvel one, which you might be thinking about the Amazing Spider-Man.
Dude, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the new character is awesome. But the problem with the new one is Sony still owns the rights to the Spider-Man, and they just kind of let Marvel borrow him for a little bit, and now Sony's taking it back, even though Marvel was, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but
dude,
it's a problem.
I'm never gonna watch it.
You should watch it. Yeah.
God, how long have people been saying I have to watch The Princess Bride? It's been like what, 2 years?
Well, these ones are when you're working out or something, like put on the Marvel series. They can last you like literally like a month or two of workouts because there's so many of them. What
do you think I do when I work out? I built like a whole desk so I can work while I work out.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. In any event, the 2015 remake of the Fantastic Four, which cost $150 million, actually has a 9% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is significantly worse than this bootleg one. So
I looked up a movie the other day that I think it was. I was talking about Nicolas Cage movies with my friends, and yeah, this is it. There's a Nick Cage movie called Left Behind, 1% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh yeah, I've heard that was really bad.
Yeah, I saw it. I was on holiday somewhere, and the place I was staying, like the Airbnb, had a bunch of like pirate DVDs, and I watched it. I was like, because you have no idea what it was. You're on holiday, the internet sucks. I'm like, I'll just put this in and watch it. It was so bad.
Yeah, I remember I read actually the book series when I was a kid, and I remember thinking it was okay. wasn't great, but I've heard that movie is just awful. Even the people who love the books are like, no, it's bad.
Well, the movie gets a 38% audience score, but I think that's just because it's really religious. Like the book's got a
it's
really
probably just
religious
the
theme, so I think it
Yeah,
gets a
yeah.
lot of, votes for that because it's objectively terrible.
Yeah, I never finished that series because I think it stopped, like they were still writing it when I was a teen. But either way, so eventually Fox, Ihinger did team up with 20th Century Fox, and he helped produce those previous movies we talked about. And then at some point, yeah.
Some of the I'm on Rotten Tomatoes and I couldn't help but look at some of the reviews for this movie. Score 1 for Satan. There's another one. Left Behind is biblical in its silliness.
That was from that era. That was from that era when Nicolas Cage was just taking every movie possible to get himself out of debt, right? Like
Yes.
just to make all the money because of all the like when he bought that T-Rex head and whatnot.
He does do some bad movies, but he does. I feel his choice. He does some amazing ones and some terrible ones. Just
exactly. So yeah, so where are we? So yeah, at some point Fox obtained the full rights from Ihinger, who he actually died of a heart attack in 2011. And yeah, so then they kind of enjoyed the same deal that that they previously had. So as long as they keep making them, they could keep the rights, which is why they did the reboot, and which is why we get all those reboots from like Sony on the Spider-Man constantly, because if they let it lapse, and the same with the X-Men, they have to keep putting them out every so many years to keep the rights. But of course now it's slightly less of a problem with Disney buying Fox. So they got back their Fantastic Four and the X-Men and whatnot. I think. Oh, that's that for this. Now we're gonna move on to some bonus facts, which are kind of funny. All right, bonus facts. So Squirrel Girl, right? Kind of a bizarre character, but kind of funny. So we're gonna talk about a few other bizarre superhero characters. So this one, to start off with, is a villain.
I know this one.
Snowflame.
About this guy.
He's a Colombian drug lord who gets his superpowers by cocaine, basically taking lots and lots of
copious amounts of cocaine.
Yeah, and snort it. The more he snorts, the more powerful he becomes.
When was this? How do you get away with this?
Yeah, what was this? I think it was in the 80s.
I feel this would make an amazing show today. Like you get like cartoons like Family Guy or whatever that are not for children. This would be amazing.
Yeah, or they had the Japanese had one 8-man or something, the 8th man or something like that, who got his powers from smoking. And it wasn't like in the thing, it wasn't like a cigarette. It looked exactly like a cigarette and they acted like it was a cigarette, but it was actually atomic energy he was smoking, like these things, but it was really just, a way to get kids to smoke. And then the US, I think they renamed it the 8th Man, if I remember correctly. And this was actually what RoboCop
powers.
Yeah, RoboCop was actually based on this character because he died and then they brought him. He was a detective and they brought him back to life as sort of a robot. So there was that one.
Wait,
and then there was
Man?
Yeah, the Smoking Man.
RoboCop's based on the Smoking Man.
Yeah.
How do I not know that? That's amazing.
Yeah. And then there was another one. I can't remember the name of this one, but he basically got his powers by drinking. And,
I'm assuming alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's what they say, but it's like, implied. So, but anyways, we have a quote here about the character of the Snowflame states when he's debuted.
I am Snowflame. Every cell of my being burns with white hot ecstasy. Cocaine is my god. And I am the human instrument of its will. I remember this from the original video. I stand by this. I think this should be made a TV show. I would watch.
Yeah. Well, and wait till you hear these other characters, and this is where you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work. So they were trying to be like all inclusive of different cultures, and stuff, but they ended up in different, people. And so what they ended up doing though was just stereotyping them all to the extreme. That would just not work. So for instance, they have a gay Peruvian magician named Extraño. Okay. But the problem is they couldn't say he was gay, but they just made him like super flamboyant, like over the top stereotype and to the point. And this is the part where you're gonna, oh yeah. So his arch nemesis is the hemoglobin, who tries to get him to get AIDS
Oh God.
as a gay character in the
What?
1980s. Yeah, and then they also don't. They kind of imply that maybe he already has AIDS.
Okay.
Yeah. This is
Well, he's
DC Comics.
stereotypically gay. Why wouldn't he have AIDS?
Yeah, in the 1980s. So yeah, and then so they have an Australian woman who is she's disembodied, and she exists in Aboriginal dream time. Not really sure how that worked.
What is that?
A Japanese man comprised of all electronics, and he can interact with various electronic devices. An Inuit who randomly his superpower is bringing out the best in people.
That's okay.
Which is a little bit. Have you seen the Deadpools? You haven't seen the Deadpools.
I've seen
have you?
Deadpool. Deadpool's great.
Oh, great!
I
Yeah,
really
the second
I
one.
really like these ones that are sarcastic. Like I really
Yeah,
like Deadpool.
well, that's why
the
Guardians of the
Galaxies was quite good.
And watch the. You're not gonna. A lot of it's not gonna make sense, but the Thor Ragnarok. Watch that
no,
one.
I don't
It is
like
hilarious.
that. It's too much
No,
like fantasy. It's like
No,
fantasy, dude.
Trust me, the Thor
He's got
Ragnarok
a
is.
magic hammer and shit. No one likes that. Oh, I shouldn't swear because we're doing this live.
Yeah.
I don't
Watch.
like that.
Thor Ragnarok is amazing. It is so good. If you like the Guardians of the Galaxy, you're gonna like this one.
I don't.
They
I'm almost
completely
certain I
changed it.
won't. I like Iron Man because he builds himself like a suit. It's science fiction. I don't like the one where it's like, oh, he comes and he's got like he's a god or something from ancient Zeus or who cares.
But it's funny. It's so funny.
Okay.
They totally go with the just the humor, the Guardians of the Galaxy style, just over the top. They sort of resurrect that franchise, the Thor one. Like I like the first one; it was pretty good. But then it kind of like meh. Like beyond that. But
These
then
exist as separate
this
movies outside of this the collection one.
Well, there are sort of in the collection, but this is it's kind of a side thing. It's got the whole.
I mean the Avengers.
Yeah, they're not like it's not a group one. It's he's off trying to save Asgard basically.
Okay.
And it's so good. It's so funny. But yeah, so another one is okay. Get this. Another one of these. These were the new Guardians. The DC was going with this series. Another one of the members. I'm not sure if this one was actually a member of the New Guardians, but anyway, it was also DC Comics. Was Rainbow Girl, and her superpowers were of the emotional spectrum. She had extremely unpredictable super mood swings, basically, and like her explicit power was super PMS, basically.
Oh wow.
And so she would tap into her anger, the color red, hope, the color blue, and willpower, the color green, to fight villains. So
this is lame.
This is
Everyone else. I mean, there's the racist ones. There's the cocaine guy who's awesome. And then there's this one. He's like, okay.
There's the super, but I feel like it's a little bit like the gay characters. Like really, that's what you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
But especially in a comic series that was supposed to like be all inclusive. They wanted. I mean, they were trying, but
yeah. And I mean,
the implementation needed some work.
Yeah. And I don't want to be like
wait, I want to
over PC by being like all of this was so terrible.
No, but this one
it's not. It's also just super lame.
Yeah. Well, and I forgot to mention another superpower she has is as her super PMS is to create a pheromone field that gave everyone would think they would just love her because of her pheromone field. That gave her a personality that everyone loved and couldn't resist because of the pheromones that she would put off as a superpower.
That's slightly less lame, but it's still lame.
Yeah, and then so Marvel
3 out of 10, and that's high for her.
DC Comics. So Marvel actually got into the fun as well. Besides the Squirrel Girl, they also had Zeitgeist.
Wait, you say DC Comics like because they're not very good, but isn't Batman DC?
No. Yeah,
that was awesome.
But like the DC Comics definitely since the Fantastic Four.
And Superman must be DC as well because there was Batman and Superman.
Yeah, they were.
I love
problem with
that.
DC Comics. If you go back to the DC Comics was really good in the beginning, and then when Marvel around that time when Marvel started putting out the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, like Marvel just before that Marvel was just copying DC Comics. Anything DC Comics did that was good. That's like the Justice League was Marvel was just trying to copy it in the Fantastic Four, but their own sort of version. ended up. But then after that, like, Marvel's sort of dominated everything. Their stuff is just so much better. The movies are so much better.
Did you see? I'm sure everyone in the comments or whatever, the live chat, will judge me for this. But this was one of my favorite shows of my childhood. Did you see the New Adventures of Superman with Dean Cain? Did you ever watch that?
Sounds familiar, but I don't know.
It was like this 90s Superman series where it was kind of just it's you watch it today and it's a bit lame, but this was amazing. I love this show.
No, I don't. That's not ringing. But do you ever watch James Bond Jr.?
No, what's that? That sounds good.
I loved that show when I was a kid. I'm sure it's awful if I was to watch it now. Another one like that is Knight Rider. Knight Rider was amazing when I was a kid, and then you watch it now, and it is so bad. Like, it is a whole nother level of bad.
Is it live action or cartoon?
Yeah, Knight Rider is the one with the car that talks.
No. I'm sorry, James Bond.
Oh,
Jr.
James Bond Jr. No, it's a cartoon, like a morning cartoon. I used to watch it like before going to school. And
Seems a bit familiar to me. Like,
yeah, you probably like it if you go
cartoon.
and listen to the theme song. If you recognize that,
Okay.
He's like, in any event, so we have this Zeitgeist who's super stomach acid, which he was that the name of the character too in Deadpool 2? The one that could spit the super stomach acid?
I do not remember.
That was a hilarious skit. But either way, so he finds out how did he find out he has super stomach acid? So he gets drunk one night and he's making out with this girl, and then he gets sick and vomits all over her face with his super stomach acid, and it burns her face off. And then his response to the incident is,
I sure hope the doctors managed to give her back a pretty face.
And given that
Seems
his stomach
unlikely.
acid, his stomach acid could melt through 4-inch thick steel. Yeah, it seems.
She's not getting her face back. How is her head okay?
Yeah. So but then he goes on to use his superpower of super awesome vomit acid for good. But either way, that is the end of today's episode.
Deadpool is that Marvel as well?
That is Marvel, but Fox had the rights at the time.
Oh, right. So he's not in any of these Avengers things? Not
yet. And I don't know how that would work. That would be because it's so out there. Like, so great too. Like those are the ones that, like, I feel like are sort of the Marvel level of quality, like Fox actually did, which is about the only ones who would have done that.
I really liked it.
Yeah, they were hilarious. Both of them were hilarious.
But what do I know? I've not seen any of these other ones.
They're so good. You gotta watch the Marvel series. It'll take you forever to get through them, but So
yeah, it's never gonna happen. I'll watch The Princess Bride before I watch that.
Yeah.
Maybe. I still get comments about Princess Bride. Is that where we're ending it today? I see that's the end of our little notes here.
That is. So
should we should we look at any reviews? Do you want to read some reviews on, or do you want to just skip that today and tell people that they should review? I have it open on the page. I could do a couple.
All right. I was also reading through some comments here.
Okay. Oh, in the chat. Yeah, I was reading through them while you had your little sound crisis.
Yeah.
People were like, "Is this pre-recorded?" And I was saying,
no.
It's just we tend to like. I sometimes glance at it when you're talking, but then I realize I'm not really paying attention, so I try not to do that and actually listen to you, so I can contribute. No. So let's just wrap up the podcast then. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for leaving reviews and all of that great stuff. Like we say, if you listen to this on a podcast, it's how it's supposed to be consumed. This video is just for fun. The live stream because, well, why not? In the podcast format, it's a little tighter, like Davin's audio crisis, that sort of thing is cut out, so you never know it happens. And we also, as I pointed out last week, we sound a bit quicker witted because we remove a lot of the little silencers.
But to be fair, there's like a 1 second delay between us because we're,
that's
10,000 miles away or something.
That's definitely true. People sometimes think we're in the same place, which is cool, but wildly unrealistic. So yes, all of that great stuff. When we have 1,000 reviews on iTunes US, we will go through and we'll pick someone out to win that Amazon gift voucher and a couple of follow-ups, runners up, I'm sure. As for us, we'll be back. Are we Are we contractually obliged to do one next week? Because I
We are
know we have various...
contractually obliged to do 2 more this month somehow. And I gotta focus on the other first. But then we do have to do at least 1 more next week because you won't be back until the 27th, right?
That's true. And I'm not here on Friday, so we'll have to do it a day before, I guess, if that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm on
Figure that
holiday. I have to take some time off. Can I? Yes, all of that good stuff. So this has been the Brain Food Show. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will be back real soon, as we are contractually obliged to be.
Yep.
See you soon.